So, this seems overly personal to open up a show with or to even talk about during a show, but I lost my mom just a few days ago to cancer. And now, if this seems more personal and off topic with the show, I think I have a way to keep it on topic because this show is always about different people in the entertainment business trying to stay on target or to find their path or I don't know, just to get random tips on stuff. And one of the most interesting things I ran into was I had to perform on the day that my mom passed. I was hearing about it. I heard about it. I stayed in bed the whole day. I just sort of sulked around, but figured, I could do this. I have to get on stage. I have to sing for 3 hours. And I got in my car and I left. Nothing really hit me when I found out. It was there was a little bit of weight on my chest, but I didn't cry or anything quite that drastic at first. I'd been crying leading up to it. You see, she was on maybe her second or third. I don't know how many bouts with cancer she had, but she managed to get on top of it every single time. And this time, it beat her down. It beat her down fast. It was lymphoma, which is cancer of the blood. So it ended up in her spinal fluid, things like that. This time around, this is something. She had the symptoms come back, and she was already told and led to believe that if the symptoms came back, she probably wouldn't be able to beat this thing again. So when the symptoms came back, she actually lied to the doctors during her checkups and said, "Oh, no, I'm fine, no symptoms." And when they became unbearable, well, then she finally had to go in. But when she admitted to the doctors that she was lying about her symptoms for about 3 weeks or so, maybe longer, they did confirm the fact that it wouldn't have helped no matter when she came in. This was just a bad bout and it came back to get her. And, well, what she did in those 3 or 4 weeks, instead of telling us she was having recurring symptoms, was she got out of bed and she went out. She came to 2 or 3 of my shows and probably visited family and was out. And I can't help but respect that because she did it her way. She said, "This is what I'm doing. I'm going to live my life as long as I can," instead of sitting in a hospital bed. And she did that until she had no choice but to be in the hospital bed. It's weird. With my messed up hours, I was able to visit at night, but it was tricky. The whole family, there's 6 of us all together. She brought up 6 kids, mostly as a single mother, which is tough. We all kept coming out to see her. She locked up her jaw a little bit. She couldn't really speak. And this is a vibrant, vibrant woman who would go out and dance and laugh, have drinks for years and years and years, and was easily the biggest fan I ever had. Well, all of a sudden she was stuck in a hospital bed for not that long, long enough, but not long enough for it to become normal and not hurt. And she was still there. She was still lucid. She was able to talk, and her and I spoke so much that we were able to understand each other most of the time, just with eye contact. She would give me this look because she never wanted to be stuck in a hospital bed. She would give me this look like, "Oh, can you believe this?" Most of her speech was tricky because her jaw was sort of locked. I remember one time saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And she looked back at me and said, "You're sorry," because she still had humor and she was aware. She was wailing in pain. She was in so much pain in the last week. At one point she was wailing, and then the nurse came in and the nurse said, "Well, we'll try to give her something." And then she left. And when she left, my mom said, "That last part I was kind of faking." And I said, "Why?" And then she just shrugged her shoulders like, "Oh no." She was she was on her last run, but she was still trying to have as much fun as she could with the situation. It's so sad because she realized what was happening. She realized that it could be any day. And then she'd have these random moments where she would just say, "Oh, Robby," and she would just start crying, and she'd hold on to me because she knew the end was coming. Paula Gutierrez, that's the name she was born with, in 1948 in East Chicago, Indiana, right outside of the city. They still had covered wagons or something, horse-drawn carriages in the streets at that time, randomly for different businesses or whatever they were. But she loved talking about the fact that when she was a kid, she still saw horses traveling up and down the streets here and there. I did not know that. There were more cars than horses, naturally, but apparently East Chicago, home of the last random horses in the streets. She's a wonderful woman. My dad was a singer, and she was incredibly supportive of him. And most of you guys have heard stories about my dad and him singing with the Jackson 5 and all that cool stuff. And when I got the bug, I was a little kid, and she gave me nothing but support. But really, this isn't just about documenting Mom's life. This is about this interesting thing I went through on stage, and since that's sort of the topic of this podcast, I figured I'd share it with you guys, especially you singers out there or you performers, because we all have different ways that we have to cope, and I don't really know what the right way is. You know, maybe I should have canceled that show. I don't know. But when I went in, as I got closer to the gig, I'm just crying. You know, I'm bawling, and then I'm not, and then I am, and then I'm not. At one point, I'd stopped at a gas station, went inside, went to the restroom, and looked at myself in the mirror and just kept saying, "This is what you do. Knock it off. You're going to get up. You're going to sing. This is what you do. You can do this." I told the sound guy, I called ahead and just let everyone know, listen, I'm walking in 5 minutes before the show starts. So I'm going to go in, put on my ear pack, and just start. You know, I didn't want any hugs. I didn't want too much greeting. And that's what I did. Here's the interesting part. When you think you're just going to go up and autopilot, you know, I do a lot of shows. I've been doing this for over 20 years now, too. So autopilot, that's all I thought. I'm going to get up there. I'm going to sing. This is what I do. This is what she would have wanted. Stay on stage. Do your thing. So I get there, and I get my ear pack, and Morgan Hare, who I sing with, comes up to me, and she says, "Okay, hey, do you want me to just sing a lead right now, and then it'll give you a minute?" And I told her, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And while I'm telling her I'm fine, something happened that maybe hasn't happened to me since I was a teenager. My hands start shaking. They're just shaking uncontrollably. And I'm trying to put my earpieces into my ears so I can hear the show and get my pack on before getting to my microphone. And I'm just telling her, everything's fine, but my hands are just shaking. You know, it's really a mess. And I got up there, and the first song I had to sing was "Happy" by Pharrell Williams. What do? You know, I went up, and you know, we have this one mic. It's called the talkback mic because we all use in-ear monitors, and only we can hear this one talkback microphone. So I got on the mic. I tried to keep it light. Just said, "Hey, so how have you guys been?" You know, just to let the band know I'm here. I'm going to do the job. And I turn around. I say a little something to the crowd. And then I start the show, and I sucked. You know, the first verse, the first line, I couldn't deliver. I couldn't hit it properly. It just, my body wasn't doing what my mind was trying to make it do. It was really weird. And again, I don't know what the right answers are. I just figured I'd share this with you performers out there. Here's the weird part, is I finally started to get my voice where it needed to be so I could sing these songs. The demeanor was really hard, but I was just trying to smile and do the thing. The weird part was I had to keep looking around quickly. I had to keep kind of moving quickly. As soon as I paused to just kind of focus on anything that you would while you're doing this, you know, I'm not that sporadic when I sing. As soon as I tried to focus on something, that was it. I thought of my mom. And everything welled up, and I almost started crying. So I had to stop focusing. So this is what I thought I'd share with the performers. It was really strange. somebody should do a psychological study on this. I had to just keep going, you know? I had to keep going, and I couldn't stop to focus. 3 1-hour sets this night at this great place called the Smokestack Brewery, a wonderful stage production, lights, the whole thing. It's a great, amazing room in Mishawaka, Indiana. I came off stage for a quick break, and the owner came up and said, "Hey, you seem a little down." And I shared with him what was happening, which I highly recommend, by the way. Let the people know, because he was so gracious, so wonderful. He lost his mom to cancer like 2 years before. And unbeknownst to me, he let the entire staff know. So all of a sudden, I was sort of treated with these kid gloves. And then I had to get back up for the second set and do it all over again. And typically at clubs like this, when they're huge, there's somewhat fanfare. And part of my job is to work the crowd. So I'll work the crowd and try to shake hands. Whatever you do, you take pictures, you talk to people. I couldn't do it. I disappeared. And I just went right up to this balcony area and hid. But then it was time for the second set. Had to do that. And this time, I still couldn't focus, but I was able to slip a little more into autopilot. And that helped a lot. It was still hard. It was still random welling up, but autopilot kicked in. And then I took another short break. That break, I had to leave the building. I left the building. I went right to my car and just sat in my car. I had some food in there. I ate a little bit, and I just couldn't do anything. And I started almost breaking down. And then it was time for the third and final set. And that one worked out. I'm lucky that I work with this band called Final Say. And they're wonderful people. And they were following my lead, kind of. When I would laugh, they would laugh. And by the third set, they started joking around with me. And then it just happened. All of a sudden, it felt like a normal set of music. And it went over and everything was fine. And toward the end, I let myself have a drink or two, because that's another thing. I couldn't do that thing where, oh boy, I need a drink, something like that. I couldn't do that because I was feeling so rough and I was feeling so on the edge that I thought a drink would just push me over, and I would end up being the dude from The Wedding Singer when he gets drunk and loses it on stage. I knew I would be that guy. So I had to feel this torture. I had to stay mentally sort of jumping about from place to place, never focusing. And I knew I couldn't drink to just even try to settle my nerves or anything like that. The whole thing was just weird. And it was torturous. It really was. And I don't know what I would do differently. I don't know. Part of me feels like, oh, this was a terrible idea and I shouldn't have done it. The other part is happy that I did, I mean, from a psychological standpoint, it was really interesting to see what was happening to me up there. It was weird. But that was days ago, mere days ago. And now you move on. I'm heading to a bunch of crazy shows out in San Diego. And then, believe it or not, I'm going to China, to Shanghai. And I'll dish on some of that stuff and talk to you guys about Shanghai. Hopefully I have some cool experiences out there, and it could be as amusing as the TED Talk, where I talk about Rome, and doing a TED Talk on whatever episode that is of the podcast. Look for How to TED Talk. It's fun. But I have all this prep to do beforehand. I have a lot of rehearsing. It's a specialty show, and the first rehearsals are tomorrow, okay? And my mom passed like 3 days ago, and I haven't done any work these last 3 days. It's been a lot of crying. It's been a lot of hurt. And then yesterday was really interesting. Yesterday I woke up and I was just like, I don't know, like a stoner without a job or something. I don't know what it was. Nothing against you stoners. I love you guys. But I was just walking around aimlessly in my pajamas all day with no purpose and no motivation. I wasn't crying anymore. I was just depressed, just utterly depressed. It was really rough. And now here I am. The fourth day. it's a little bit of both. You go through and you have to start putting things together like photos and pictures. And it's really hard. And I'm going to be rather unprepared for my big rehearsal tomorrow, that's for sure. But it's mandatory. I have to do it. I don't know what to say. I don't know what the answers are. I'm just letting you guys know what I did. And it was rough, but I'd like to hear emails from anybody because I'm really curious about this. Just a chatteroffact@gmail.com. I would like to hear your stories. What you guys did. If you want to share that with me, I'd greatly appreciate it. I don't have to share it on the podcast. It's okay. But I would really like to know how you guys handled it, what the process was like for you. That would be great. She was a wonderful woman. It's crazy because we had I was blessed with this lady, the love and the understanding, and she put a lot on me as a kid because she let me know that she was a single mom and I was the man of the house in between husbands. She was married 3 times, and actually all 3 great guys. Just the first 2 weren't built for husband world. They weren't. And the third one, Mr. Joe Magallanes, was, and this guy is just amazing, and he showed her happiness. Once she married him, she started going out, she started partying, just years and years, and having great times and experiencing life better than she ever had before. And there was a support system there. And I think the hardest part I'm having with it is it wasn't like my mom that I would just once in a while visit, or it wasn't, oh, my mom is sickly for 2 years and I'm just visiting her and she's not really there. I mean, she was sharp as a whip to the very end. Her whip's sharp. I don't even know if I said that right. But either way, you get what I'm saying. And then she was gone. And the worst part about it is she was my best friend. We went through this real rough period when I was 18 or so. And it was hard. It was as hard as it can get between a son and a mother. And I wasn't home anymore after that. I left and might have even been kicked out. but hey, maybe I deserved it. She was having a hard time herself. But either way, something happened to me in that time. I decided, okay, I'm not taking a dime from you. I'm never asking for help. I'm never doing what normal kids would do for their parents when they're still starting off and when they're still considered teenagers. I went out and I did it all on my own. I worked. I made huge mistakes. I made some huge victories. I struggled and struggled and struggled, and I found my way, and I never asked her for anything. And I used to harbor some anger for that because I got to see other family members and stuff get quite a few things, as well they should. They're her children. And it really bugged me. But whenever we came back to one another a few years later after that, we came back as friends. And it was interesting, the relationship I had with her, because I never asked her for a dime. I never asked her for help. All I ever asked was for her to be my mom and for her friendship. You guys need to remember this, a lot of times we have some parents that just, they lay the foundation and they control the lay of the land. My father is a wonderful guy, but it's very hard to have a conversation with him. So I know that I am not going to have deep, meaningful talks with my father often. Sometimes he'll squeeze out a little, a little knowledge and a little wisdom, but he's not really that guy. And I know that, and he set that precedent, and that's who he is. My mom set a different one. She set an open door. We can talk. I'll be there for you. I'm going to scold you like a mother will, and I'm going to give you crap. And if I'm moody, you're going to feel it. All that. That's normal. But in the end, I can't say, well, she did this for me and not for somebody else. In the end, I think with your parents, it's not necessarily how they raised you or how they raised another sibling or anyone else that they're close to. After you're an adult and you're out of the house, I think your relationship with your parent is what you make of it. A lot of people may say, oh, her and Robby talked all the time. She's Robby's favorite. Yeah, but she was responding to what I gave her. I gave her 2 to 4 phone calls a week. I gave her conversation. We had a lot of fun parties. We had a lot of drinking and a lot of dancing. I gave her that too. But I gave her more than that. I gave her conversation. And it wasn't just me gifting her that. I needed it. I needed someone to talk to. I loved it. Every gig. I sometimes feel like a driver, a truck driver more than a singer. I'm on the road all the time. And really, nobody's going to be around and available during those hours. 6 o'clock on a Friday, 6 o'clock on a Saturday, on a Wednesday, on a Sunday. I do a lot of shows all week long. She was always there. And we would just talk and laugh and talk and laugh. So, in a way, the best thing that ever happened to me was running into that rough run with her, because it set me up to never ask for anything but her friendship. And she gave it to me. She did. She gave me all of her love and her conversations, and we became best friends. And I never really realized it, because you think of your mom. I'd never really equated her to best friend until she was gone, because I never realized that I talked to her more than anybody else in my life. I talked to her on the phone, on the way to gigs. I don't know how you performers out there deal with it, but it's the only thing that helps me, because I love the people and I love my bands. I love my bandmates. All that stuff is great, but sometimes you need somebody outside of it. And when you're constantly on the road and you're constantly performing and you're constantly on different hours from most people in your life, your friends and family, you end up very lonely. Even though you're surrounded by tons of people, you're very lonely. I wrote this song called Coming Home. And one of the lines in it is, I'm so crowded yet so all alone. And I feel that most of the time. I won't stop what I'm doing because I love what I do. So there's that. But anyway, she was there and she was on the phone and we talked and we talked and we laughed. And now that she's gone, now I realize that that was my best friend. And I realize that she gave me something that nobody else could. And I don't know who I'm going to talk to, quite frankly, when I'm driving now. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. She was pretty sick for the last couple of weeks, so I was already feeling that pain. There's such a gap in my life now, and I have great memories, and I hope this gets better, guys. I hope it does, because right now it hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. I don't want her to be gone. I can't believe that she's gone, and it stings. It stings. The weirdest part is I don't know my triggers yet. There are these things that I can say, and I feel like, okay, well, this is safe. I'll say this right now to my friends or to my family, but I don't realize what's going to trigger me. So I feel like, okay, well, this is good. I'll just say, oh yeah, and she always loved this song, so that would be a fun thing to, maybe we'll play it somewhere. And since I can't find my trigger and I don't know where it is, where the landmines are emotionally, it just happens and they sneak up on me. Next thing I know, I'm just saying, oh yeah, she always liked this song and this is what she wanted. And that's exactly what goes on. And it's random. It's random. I feel like, we could talk about lasagna. That's not a big deal. Like, she made sure I had a full plate of lasagna all the time. No big deal. But then you're saying it, she made sure I had a full plate of lasagna all the time. It's so weird. And it makes me kind of keep to myself. There are so many family gatherings, and I'm okay getting together with my siblings because we're all going through the same thing. We're all processing it differently, but we're going through the same thing. So that doesn't feel bad. But anyone else, I just can't be around people. Figure that one out, because I have a ton of shows coming up, and I don't want to be around people. I don't know, maybe I'll touch base after this big run and let you guys know how it ended up. But right now, it's really hard. It's really hard. Oh, you guys aren't going to believe this. I mean, at some point in the hospital, I make a joke to her. My nephew's in the room, and she would light up when anybody would come into the room. And at one point, I walk in, and she lit up, and my nephew said, "Oh, see, you must be the favorite," or whatever he said, And I made a joke. And I said, "Nah, I'm just, I'm the only one that never took anything from her ever." And I was just joking. And again, I don't want to get angry emails, especially from my siblings. She gave them what she had to give them. She gave everybody, when my daughter's 18, 19, I'm still going to be giving her stuff. I'm going to help her as much as I can until she doesn't need it anymore. But the fighting and the bad things that happened between my mother and myself when we weren't getting along caused me to go on a different path. That doesn't make me better than anybody else. It just put me in a different place, and allowed me to make that joke because it was just a joke, and she laughed. And through the years, I've always wanted her to acknowledge that I've never taken a dime from you since I was 18, and you've never given me anything but the friendship. And she would never give me that credit, and it always bothered me because that situation started out because of the hardship between us. Anyway, here she is, so close to the end. I make the joke, she laughs, and she pulls my arm in, and then she said, "You should be so proud of yourself because everything you did all by yourself. You did it all, and you did it all without help." And all of a sudden, all this little corner of anger that I had toward her still just went away. And this perfect mother who was so good to me growing up and so good to me after the fact erased the bad time. And listen, not everyone's going to get that. And not everybody can or should. It's impossible. I'm glad that I have it. But as I look back at what she did and even any mistakes, I feel like all of us might point and say, well, mom did this and mom did that. It's Paula Gutierrez, going with her maiden name since she was married, a couple times. Paula Gutierrez tried everything that she did, even when it wasn't great, even when it wasn't the best move. She tried. She was attempting to love, and she was attempting to be the best mother she could be. And when you really step back, and if I really look at everything that she did and the pitfalls she had with any of her kids, in the end, everything she did was her attempt to be a good mom. So how can I fault her for anything? She was making decisions and doing things at age, 30. And when I was 30, I was still screwing up so badly. I couldn't imagine trying to navigate 6 separate lives, 6 kids. And she did it. And you guys should remember that too. They're all going to screw up. And sometimes you guys are going to, someday you're going to be parents and you're going to screw up. It's going to happen. But you're not going to want to. If you do, you're a jerk. But if you're not a jerk and if you are a loving parent, you're going to try your best, but then you're going to make big old mistakes too because you don't know any better. Who does? There's no manual, and if there are, there's no way you can lock into a specified journey or plan for how to treat a young individual who's growing up because everyone's different. There's 6 of us, 6 siblings in my family. Every one of us are totally different people. Some of us have little clusters of similarities. It can almost become cliquish in a way, which is fine because, some of us just get along more easily with others and all that good stuff because we're different people. But even with that in mind, we're all totally different. And she had to find a way to navigate that and work with that. And that's what all parents have to do. So I think it's important to remember that. It's important to remember that if you have a good parent, and if you can tell that the basis is love, then learn to cut them some slack because they're trying. And someday you may be in that same position trying yourself. And you may even look back and say, wow, I am not doing this at this age as well as she did. I guess that's all there's left to say. This is weird. I look at the podcast numbers and I see them growing and all that good stuff, but I don't know who you guys are. It's really strange that I've been talking on this mic and doing these shows for so long, and I really have no idea who I'm talking to. I'm glad you guys are out there. I really want to thank you guys. And whoever you are, man, you just got a slightly deeper slice of me than you ever have before. And since I've spent most of my time mourning this by myself, it's kind of nice to be able to talk sort of to a faceless crowd. So I appreciate you guys. Whoever you are listening, I really appreciate it. It helped a lot. I feel better than I did a half hour ago. Like I said, I'd love to hear your stories. Feel free. Email me, a chatterfact@gmail.com. And I'd like to know if anybody had anything similar. And I'm really curious how you dealt with it and how you handled the stage. Well, there you are. This has been a Chatter Fact. And it's totally dedicated to my mom, Paula, who loved old soul music and who taught me how to dance and in so many ways taught me how to love and to be understanding and taught me how to care. And if you guys feel ever so slightly like you met her a little bit through this, then it was totally worth it, because I wish the world could have met her, because she was such a treat. She always told me that she talks to her mom after her mom passed. And all of my conversations with her, 1 out of every 5, this is when she was well, she would just say, I'm going to be gone someday, and you're going to talk to me. I want you to keep talking to me. And when you do that, I'm going to listen. I'm going to be listening, because I talk to my mom all the time. So I'm going to talk to my mom on my drives. If you were driving back, fairly attractive bald guy who seems like he's running late for a gig and there's no earpiece in his ears and he's just chatting to no one, then you'll know that that's me talking to mom. And if I'm lucky, she's listening. In the meantime, I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a great week. Have a great month. Have a great year. Do me a big favor and go out and find your smile.